has very been much like a horror film or a creepy horror novel, and recently I began contemplating on a strange and creepy story I grew up with, one that really isn't talked about in my family anymore, and when we do speak about it, usually we joke around about it as an attempt to lighten the mood, when in reality, it is nothing to joke about. My sister is about 5 years older than me, and on a side note, I hope she doesn't get mad at me for telling this story. And for a time before I was born, she and my mother and father experienced strange occurrences in our former apartment complex. My sister saw the film E.T., and it didn't affect her in a negative way. She wasn't afraid of E.T. She enjoyed the movie, and it didn't really impact her in any way other than the fact that she found it to be a good movie. Now, I'm not sure at what point my sister saw the movie, but I think it was at least a few years before the strange events began to occur. Sometime later, my sister began to act strangely. She would do very violent things for a child her age, throwing objects at people's heads, and just all around really strange and violent stuff. Most of it is personal, and I'm not going to get into it here. So at some point in time, my sister begins to talk about the being in her closet. She said the being talked to her and told her its name was E.T., that it was the same E.T. from the movie. This E.T. was the one who was telling my sister to do all those strange and violent things. My sister was bewildered. She was unsure what to think. At first, like most parents, she thought it was all in my sister's imagination. But then she began wondering about my sister's strange behavior over the past few months. One night, my mom decided to sleep with my sister in her bed. E.T. didn't come out and talk to everyone, but he did begin to shake my sister's bed while my mother was on it. It started slowly, then violently. My mom always told me it was like something straight out of The Exorcist. It really shook like one of those old hotel room beds. You know the ones? My mom jumped out of the bed, took my sister with her, and went to my dad's bedroom. Frightened, she explained the situation to my half-asleep father. Up to this point, my dad was very stern in his opinion on the matter. It was all part of my sister's childhood. She was just a kid, and this was all a part of her overactive imagination. But this time, my mom told my dad that if he didn't believe them, that he should sleep in that room by himself, while my mother and sister slept in my dad and mom's bed. My dad accepted it, as she just wanted to get some sleep. Sure enough, the bed shook on him too, and needless to say, my father slept on the living room couch that night. A few weeks later, everything returned to normal, and my sister was once again sleeping in her bedroom by herself. So this part of the story I've decided to remove. Basically, sometime after things seemed to return to normal, my mom experienced something truly horrifying in my sister's room, and at some point, my parents complained about the apartment to their landlord, and the landlord allowed them to move into the vacant complex directly above and across from their current one. After that, the events ended. My sister apparently still acted out from time to time, but it was really just normal kid stuff. Nothing as violent as those times in the old apartment. The old apartment sat vacant for a while. Eventually, a small family moved in, and to my mother's horror, they had 2 young sons. My mom waited a few weeks for them to settle in. Then one day, while at the washing machines downstairs, I think that's where it was, my mom asked the new woman who had moved in how she was liking the apartment. She had no complaints, but she found it strange that her younger son suddenly had an imaginary friend, and he claimed that this friend's name was E.T. And the funny thing about this was that the boy had never seen the film and had no idea E.T. the extraterrestrial even existed. This part of the story is where it gets fuzzy. As I said earlier, it's been a long time since my family and I have spoken of this story. Eventually, the boy stopped talking to E.T., but I'm not sure how long it was before he did. The family moved out of that apartment, but I don't recall how long it was. It may have been a few years. I think the family may have had a priest bless the place, but I'm not 100% certain. And eventually, my sister got a new bed, And that was when my parents found out where the bed had really come from. They had known that the bed came from my dad's parents' attic, but what they didn't know was that someone that my dad's parents had known had passed away on it. The person had died of old age, aka natural causes, but still one can't help but wonder if it had anything to do with the events. Maybe the bed was some sort of catalyst for what took place. The apartments we lived in weren't exactly old, and my family wasn't into the occult or anything like that. One theory my mom has is that maybe whomever lived in that apartment before us was into the occult and had invited some entity into the location. My sister was but a child, and we all know the theories around children and the paranormal, not to mention the bed someone died on, whether related or coincidence. Another theory is that something from my grandparents, on my mom's side home, had attached to her, but that's another story for another time. Thank you for reading. I have had one experience where a type of demonic entity descended on a lady battling alcoholism. This lady told me point blank that this demonic came up out of her deceased uncle at the funeral she was attending. The uncle was also an alcoholic and had battled the disease most of his life. Her family backed her story, relating that the uncle had often spoke of this demonic being. The lady was terrorized for nearly 2 years and eventually gave up the addiction. The family gave a long list of family members who had battled this creature and the disease. The belief was that when one family member died, it simply found another victim to adhere to. It took the form of a bat-like creature with an old man's very small head and face. I spent a great deal of time with this lady and did believe what she told me. This woman was about as tough as they come, but she would break down and cry every time she related the story. Right, let's start this off with the traditional I'm not crazy bit. On the 7th of April 2014, I decided to take my routine shower of the day. However, while I was in the shower, I kept feeling like I was being watched. We have 3 mirrors in the bathroom, and I swear I saw a dark figure. No facial features or any clothing, just a solid human-like figure pass through each mirror. It was not tall or anything, and it looked about average height, and I kept telling myself, "You are not here for me. You are not here for me." And the figure just vanished. Since the 7th, I've not seen it again. On the 9th of April 2014, my wife's father, who seemed in very good health, had a massive heart attack and suddenly passed away. His passing was so shocking that no one believed that he passed away. I personally feel that that figure was somehow involved. Fast forward to today, the 21st of April 2014. I was sitting in the lounge, and a picture we framed of my wife's father suddenly fell over. The reason why I'm so freaked out about the picture falling over is due to the fact that we positioned it in such a way that it would not even move if the wind picked up. To add to the freakiness of the picture falling over, this evening, my wife asked me to make her and my daughter a cup of tea. I already had the kettle boiling and the tea bags in the cup. However, I reached for the sugar and placed it on my right-hand side. I then opened the cupboard to grab an extra cup for myself, and the lid on the sugar suddenly popped off the container and landed next to the kettle, which is also impossible as they are generally slipped on lids. My wife said it could have just been compressed air, but it gets open and closed multiple times throughout the day. If there's anyone that knows what the hell is happening, some insight would be amazing. I'm not a nut job or anything. I'm just very freaked out. I told my wife about this and she said that I may be open to things like this. In the past, I used to have really bad nightmares, but they stopped once we placed a bit of holy water in the room. I've not had any nightmares in around 5 years. However, over the past few months, they have started again. Anyway, I will end things off here. Any help would be much appreciated. Thanks for reading. When I was 16 or 17, I woke up to a symbol written on my mirror. I'm 37 years old now, but the question of what it was or where it came from still haunts me. The memory pops into my mind occasionally from time to time. Today, I thought of it for the first time in several years, and for the first time, it occurred to me that I might be able to find answers on the internet that weren't available when it happened. The symbol wasn't something that the steam in the shower made visible. I woke up one morning after thoroughly cleaning my room the day before. Both parents are ex-military. When I say thorough, what I mean is completely spotless, and looked up from my pillow to see it. Strangely, my eyes went right to it. It was like my subconscious knew it was there, but consciously, I had no idea how it got there. I was not scared. I was at a point in my life where I had felt most secure in my own spirituality. To explain, I identified with Native American spirituality because it was the closest thing to natural to me. But I hate labels. At the time, and even now, I felt an odd familiarity with rocks, trees, and the wind. Not animals so much, but I do like birds. Rocks especially. I know this sounds freaking insane, hence why I never bothered to explain it to people. It's just how I polarized. I wasn't scared, but I wasn't sure what it was. I told my sister about it. She saw it, but I smudged it away. I assumed there would be no defining it, and I tried to rationalize it by telling myself I probably put it up in my sleep, but it looked like it was drawn with clear wax or chapstick, and there wasn't any in my room. But has anyone ever seen anything like this before? I would love to hear them if so. I've been dealing with addiction, and it seems to directly correlate with the strange phenomenon I've experienced over and over. Every time I engaged in this particular addiction, I would begin to experience strange, scary, and even threatening phenomenon. I could go on forever about all the experiences I've had if someone were interested, but I'm fairly certain that I would be deemed insane. For now, let's just say that I hear voices that sometimes give me information that I've never heard of, but I Google it and there it is. I began to use a recorder, an iPad app to record some of this. I have heard whistling so clear and realistic that I've searched my house inside and out, as well as set up cameras. To my surprise, I captured the whistling on my recorder. My wife heard it, but just denies anything out of the ordinary due to the fear of actually conceiving the possibilities. Also, I have 2 small dogs. On occasions, I could strongly feel a presence. My dogs jumped up from their beds and start sniffing and acting anxious. Once I sat down and used an app that measured EMF, and it suddenly showed giant calculations, and my dogs actually got up and run in front of me wagging their tails and sniffing the floor like I had thrown treats out to them. There is plenty more information that has no explanation, but is backed up by actual findings. If anyone wants to hear more, let me know. Meanwhile, I've made it clear that I stand my ground, and I'm no longer afraid, but I do have a real situation on my hands. Hey guys, Phantom here, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your viewership as always. If you liked this video and you want to see more of it, please like, comment, and share. I especially like the comments, and I say this all the time because I really do like your interaction and I really appreciate it. Honestly, I'd rather have more billions of comments than views, but that's just me. Anyway, hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Stumbling again on my words, and I'm not going to edit that out because I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be. Anyway, guys, love you, and let me know what you think, honestly. Let me know. Good stories, right? I hope so. See you later. P.S. Subscribe now.